Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Weekly Walk. I'm your host, Joshua Ingram. It is Monday, November 1st, year of our Lord 2021, and this is going to be episode number 52. So there's a few things I wanted to talk about this week. A couple of them, man, I really wish when I wrote these down, I could attach a memory to the note. Because I had some good things I wanted to talk about, some good thoughts that were going throughout my mind throughout this week, but I can't remember what led to it. I was thinking about maybe it's because I've started attending this church in the new town that I've moved to, and the timing was pretty good because I walked in the day the pastor was starting to preach through the book of James. So I'm really at the front end of that and get to hear the whole series. But perhaps it was that because that beginning part of James talks about trials and the different trials, how we're supposed to handle them, the different trials we go through and whatnot. And perhaps the pastor told a story or something that made me think of this. But I wanted to talk about this trial that I went through real early on in my faith. So I got saved, excuse me, in April of 2001, and my salvation was very radical, like a Saul to Paul type conversion. Excuse me. I wasn't raised in the faith. I had no knowledge of the gospel, so my conversion was just very, from a human standpoint, out of the blue. Like I wasn't searching. I wasn't curious about religion. I wasn't involved in any sort of religion. I had no religious background. I had no concept of Christianity. Other than, the basic stuff you pick up on as an American, like through TV or the media or whatnot, or if my mom were to ever talk about God, she was referring to Jesus and so on and so forth, and perhaps a few mentions of the Bible throughout my life. But I had no background, so like I say, my salvation was very radical and very God wrought. It was, which is why I'm so big on sovereignty, because God came into my life when I wasn't seeking Him. He sought me, He saved me, in just an incredible way. So, but anyways, when I first got saved, I got saved in a jail cell, and like I say, the salvation experience itself was very miraculous. Like I literally felt myself being born again. I felt the light of Christ come into my heart and renew me. I felt the born again experience. I felt my heart coming to life. I had immediately, I had the presence of God within me, convicting me of sin and convicting me of right and wrong. I had a desperate want and need for the Bible, but I didn't have discipleship, which is the one drawback. Like, I look at things as a very positive thing is that I wasn't influenced by church. So I didn't have any of the errors or false doctrines or anything like that coming from any particular denomination or church upbringing. I came into the scriptures as a blank slate, and I was able to just, eventually, through years of study and reading on my own, come to develop a doctrine and an understanding of what the scriptures teach. And then as I started to intermingle with Christians, I was able to work out the kinks and find the differences and really delve deep into doctrine and theology and whatnot. But I didn't have that the discipleship right out the gate. Like I say, I got saved in jail, so I didn't get saved in a church. I was very leery of churches. I remember thinking that we were in the last days and that Jesus warned over and over again about false teachers and false prophets in the last days. And so I was very skeptical of churches. If the devil's going to come, I thought he's going to come in a pulpit. He's going to come as a smiling preacher. And so I was very skeptical, very hesitant to accept the teaching of any man. But the drawback of, and that's a positive, I think, because then as that blank slate reading the scriptures, I'm able to learn from the word without a whole lot of outside influence. It's probably impossible to avoid all outside influence. You read things, you see things on TV, or you hear things on the radio or whatnot. But for the most part, I was able to avoid anybody else's teaching and just study the word on my own. But the negative was the lack of discipleship, and the lack of fellowship. And it's through those two things, I think, that maturity is cultivated. Like, I gained a lot of head knowledge in the first formative years of my salvation, but there wasn't a whole lot of maturity until I started to really get into fellowship and learn how to deal with other Christians and learn temperance and these things that the Spirit develops in you. You have to have fellowship and discipleship in order for it to cultivate. But with the lack of discipleship and a lack of understanding, really, and right out the gate, I didn't know the Bible. I knew the Bible was the Word of God, and I knew it was my necessary meat, but I didn't have an understanding of it. So I was kind of a sheep in the wilderness, a sheep on my own. And as such, when I got out of jail, I floated back to my old lifestyle. I went back to what was familiar. I went back to my old friends. I went back to my old girlfriend. Went back to my old habits. And so I had to struggle through that stuff. The Lord was convicting me of my sin. When I would cuss or swear, when I'd get high or when I'd drink or whatnot, there was strong conviction. The presence of the Lord was with me, and He brought me through that stuff. But I did have a great trial of faith in those first years. And what had happened was, so in 2001, I would have been like 19 years old, I think, when I got saved. Yeah, I was 19. And so within that first year or so, like I say, I went back to my old lifestyle. I was still drinking, still getting high, still hanging out with the same old people. But I had this conviction in me that I knew now that these things were wrong. I just didn't know how to escape them. And one of the things that happened to me was a couple of my friends, or a friend and his girlfriend, wanted to go to the bar. And I was only 20 years old, so I wasn't old enough to go to a bar. So I told my friends, I said, well, you guys go do your thing. I'm going to go hang out with this other friend of mine. And when the bar closes at 2 a.m., I'll meet up with you guys and we can party and hang out afterwards or whatnot. So I went up to this friend of mine's, and I don't remember. We were probably smoking weed, probably drinking. I don't remember. I do remember he had some pills. I don't even know what they were, but I took them. And 2 o'clock rolls around. So I left his house and went down to the bar to meet my friend and his girlfriend. And as they were coming out of the bar, this older gentleman, like I say, we were 20. This guy was probably late 40s, maybe 50, followed them out of the bar. And he was obviously really, really drunk. And he was just, how loud and obnoxious drunks can be, and aggressive and saying foolish things. And he was saying things towards my friend and his girlfriend. And my friend took it as this guy was trying to pick up on his girlfriend. And so they started arguing. And we're just like half a block past the bar in this little alleyway. And they're arguing back and forth. And I remember even then, because, the Spirit of Christ is in me, although I'm not mature in the faith, I'm not living as I ought to be. But that Spirit of Christ in me, that, was trying to keep peace. I didn't want them to fight. So I was standing between them, trying to, hey guys, calm down, come on, let's, blah, blah, blah. Let's just go on with our lives. But they just, pretty much ignored me and were yelling at each other. My friend's girlfriend got upset because she couldn't calm them down either, and she just walked off and left. So it was just the three of us in this alley for a few minutes. Me in the middle, trying to keep the peace, and these two yelling at each other. And after a few minutes, my friend hit the guy, swung on him and hit him. And the foolish Adamite nature that was within me took over. I wanted to show my loyalty to my friend. So I hit the guy as well. And he fell to the ground, and my friend started kicking him in the face. And I don't remember if I kicked him or not. If I did, it's very out of character for me. Even when I was lost, I really didn't believe in hitting a person when they were down. But the guy ended up getting knocked out, I think. And in order to de-escalate the thing, because it was a very spiritual thing as well, I remember just a darkness above us, like in the spirit world, so to speak, just perceiving a demonic influence. And so I wanted it to end. And so I told my friend, I'm like, come on, man, the cops are coming. And that got him to take off running, and we ran away and just left the guy in the alley there. So the next day we wake up, and this is in a very small town, so news travels quickly. All of a sudden we hear that this guy was severely injured, and the police are looking for whoever did this. And it coincidentally, so to speak, but it's the hand of the Lord in this. Another friend of mine had gotten into a fight like a week prior to this, or relatively close to this night. He had been in the fight, and he had fractured his wrist or something, so he was in a sling. And the police, while doing their investigation, heard, hey, this guy, I think his name was Travis. Somebody told him Travis had been in a fight and had hurt his arm. And so they came and questioned Travis. In the meantime, my buddy and I had told Travis all about the previous night. And so when the police start questioning Travis, he got scared because he thought, man, I'm going to be held accountable for something I didn't do. And he told them, hey, you need to go talk to Josh and Jamie. They were bragging last night about beating some guy up in an alleyway by the bar there. So the police end up pulling us into the police station and questioning us. And of course we were in denial, no, it wasn't us. And they actually brought this guy in to identify us. And he was so drunk from the previous night that he couldn't remember. And so he was unable to identify us. He basically told them, I don't recognize any of these guys. So the police had no choice but to let us go, even though, because of our previous behavior in this small town, the cops knew it was us. Like they knew, all right, these are the guys, but they didn't have any evidence to prove it. So they had to let us go. Fast forward a couple weeks, they're doing their investigation, and this guy had fractured his skull, like the eye orbit or whatever it's called, the skull around the eye, and he could have died. It could have killed him. And so they're thinking that a weapon was used. They thought this guy had been hit with like a pipe or something. And so the talk around town is they're talking about charging us, once they can find proof, with attempted murder. And so I'm in a panic now. I've got a brand new son, a son who's year and a half, maybe 2 years old at the time. And I'm thinking, man, if they catch us, an attempted murder charge, I'm going to prison. And I'm not going to see my son for years and years or whatever it is, I don't remember, but I think you can do like 20 years in prison for an attempted murder. And so I was really, really scared in this period here. But at the same time, the Spirit of the Lord started to do a work on me and was greatly convicting me and pressing upon me my need to confess. And I wrestled with the Lord, and I said, I can't do this, Lord. I can't. If I confess, I'm going to prison, and I'm not going to see my son. And I remember I would lay on my bed and I would just weep because the Spirit of the Lord was so heavy upon me, just convicting me about confessing. And I don't remember if it was days or whatnot, but I was just in this internal struggle. And I remember laying on my bed and praying, and the conviction of the Lord was so heavy that I had no choice. And so I remember crying out to the Lord and saying, "Fine, I'll confess, Lord. I trust you. I'll go do this, and if I got to go to prison, I got to go to prison. I'm going to trust you, Lord." And so I don't remember if I called the police or I went down to the police station or whatnot, and I confessed. I told them the whole story. I told them what had happened. And so me and my buddy were arrested, or I don't know if my friend was arrested at that time. We kind of had stopped communicating. I don't know if he went to, moved somewhere or where he was. I don't know. I was doing my own thing, and I was just in this spiritual battle. And so I like I say, I confessed and found myself back in jail. And so this trial of faith, I was facing this circumstance where I didn't know what was going to happen to me, but the conviction of the Lord was upon me, and I had to do what the Spirit of the Lord was convicting me to do. And so I placed my trust in him. And he was actually very gracious to me in this. And based on, I guess, my testimony, they realized, okay, a weapon wasn't used. I think Jamie had steel-toed boots or something when he was kicking the guy. But when it ended up going to court, they had lowered the charges from an attempted murder to which would have been a felony and would have landed me in prison more than likely. They dropped it to a misdemeanor battery charge. And I ended up getting a 6-month sentence. And because of this, because of my obedience to the Lord, which wasn't me, like I want to emphasize that it wasn't me like doing something good, saying, yes, I'm going to obey the Lord. The conviction of the Lord was so heavy upon me, I had no choice. It was more fearful to me to disobey the Spirit than it was to confess. It was more fearful to displease the Lord, to feel that wrath. Not even wrath, just this real heavy conviction that was upon me. I would rather deal with prison than to displease my Lord in that. So, like I say, they ended up giving me a 6-month sentence. And the mercy of God in this, not only in the sentence, but in so many different ways, was just miraculous. Those 6 months ended up being the greatest 6 months of my life, because here I was back in jail. I had been saved in 2001. Here we were in 2002, late 2002, maybe early 2003. I don't recall the dates exactly. But I'm back in jail, and this is where the Lord really caused me to start growing and maturing, because I had these 6 months, and they gave me this Bible called Free on the Inside. It's a jailhouse Bible. And at the beginning of the Bible, it has a yearly planner, read through the Bible in a year. And it's broken down really nice, 365 days. I had exactly half that. I had 6 months, so I said I'll just read twice as much, and I'll work through the scriptures in a year, in these 6 months. And during those 6 months, man, the scriptures came alive to me. I was able to pray every day for the Lord to give me wisdom and understanding and knowledge and discernment, and just grew, leaps and bounds through reading the scriptures. And when I got out of jail, I was able to, after a few more trials, to walk away from my old lifestyle and really just, dedicate myself to the Lord. But also, in addition to me getting that 6-month period of growth, which, like I say, was the best time of my life, because the scriptures were just alive to me, and it was so refreshing and joyous and just a great time, that 6 months in jail. In addition to that, the gentleman that had been knocked out, because his eye orbit was fractured, he had to go in and get his skull x-rayed. And when doing that, they found a tumor on his brain. and they had caught it early, and they were able to save this man's life potentially. They were able to remove this tumor that wouldn't have been caught without these events. And I was able to write the guy an apology letter that I think my mom told me later on that meant a lot to him and his family, because she kind of knew the guy. It's a small town. Everybody knows everybody. But it just ended up being a great event in my life, like a pivotal moment in my spiritual walk. And so, like I say, I don't recall what led to me thinking about this or wanting to share this on the podcast exactly, but it had something to do with that trial. And for me, that trial was staring in the face of prison, staring in the face of not being able to be with my newborn son, not being able to see him grow up, not being able to spend time with him. And it would have just been my life would be completely different if I would have had a felony on my record, and so all these things, I was facing that, and I, from a worldly standpoint, I could have gotten away with it. Like I said, there was no evidence, even though the cops knew it was me. There was no evidence, none. The guy couldn't even remember who we were. He couldn't pinpoint us. They had no physical evidence. They had no testimony, nothing. So from a worldly standpoint, I could have gotten away with it. But the inner turmoil that the Spirit just laid upon me, that trial of wrestling, am I going to trust God? Am I going to do what's right and trust in the Lord? Or am I going to disobey the Lord and try to get myself out of this situation? And like I say, there really was no choice, because the Spirit was so heavy upon me, which I love that aspect of God, is that He doesn't leave us to ourselves. He works in us, both our salvation and to do good works. He works that in us. It's His Spirit that convicts and persuades and moves and motivates and grants desires, and it's all Him. And it was just a beautiful thing, and then ended up being one of the best moments of my life. All right, so another thing that I want to talk about here. I've mentioned, or we've discussed in at least one or two podcasts, the issue of gambling and my position on gambling, and not really seeing it as a sinful thing, as long as there's no love of money or a desire to get rich quick, and if it's just done for fun, it's just done a game, I really didn't see any sin in it. But I've been reading through the book of Hosea here for the last month or two, and in the first few chapters of Hosea, it talks about the Lord's complaint against Israel. So Israel was called a whore, a harlot, because the nation of Israel had spiritually cheated on God. God was their God. He was their spiritual husband, so to speak, and they were His bride. And they had cheated on Him with these false gods by worshiping the gods of the surrounding area there, the Canaanites or whatever it was, Baal worship. They cheated on the Lord with this Baal worship. And so the Lord talks about how He had provided for them. He had given them their daily needs. He had given them their sustenance in the form of corn and oil and agriculture and whatnot, rain and all that. The whole monetary system must have been way different back then. Like we don't bargain and barter and trade with corn and with oil or with crops. We use money. We have paper money, and so that we use the money to barter and trade. But I think back then, you would bring your goods to the marketplace and barter and trade with goods. And so the Lord had increased them with corn and oil. And what they did then was they would take this corn and oil, they would take what God had provided for them, and they would offer it to Baal. They would present it as a sacrifice to Baal, and they would pray to Baal to increase their goods, to increase their corn and oil. So the Lord's complaint was, you've taken what I've given you and gone and committed adultery by offering it up to a false deity and trusting in this false deity to provide more, to give you, to provide your next day's sustenance. You've taken what I've given you for today and promised to provide for tomorrow, and instead of trusting in me, you're offering it up to Baal and asking him to increase. And so all of a sudden it clicked in my head. I was like, man, is that what is being done when you go to the casino and play the slot machines? Like, is that what we're doing? Because God has given us our sustenance. He's provided us money so that we can survive. He's provided us money to pay our bills, to pay for our shelter, to get our food, to get our water. He has provided this for us. And we take that and we go to a machine. And if you've ever been to a casino, most of these machines are decked out with the very same pagan deities that the Jews were committing adultery with. They're decked out in Zeus and Titan and Baal and bulls and Ra and all the Egyptian deities. Like, the machines are the same. They represent the same thing. They have these symbols on them, and we go and we take what God has given us and we put it into this machine, and we're hoping and trusting this machine to increase, to give us more. And so I was like, man, is this the exact same thing that the Jews were doing in Hosea? Are we taking what God has given us and offering it to false idols in the hopes that we'll get increase, in the hopes that we'll get gain? And so I was thinking about that, and like, I'm sure that kind of idea has been floated out to me before, not in the exact way, not with the Hosea reference, but the idea that it's idol worship or whatever. But the scenario in Hosea matches it so well that it fit perfectly. And so I started thinking, I was like, Lord, is that what we do when we go to the casino? And I was like, yeah, but I'm not worshiping. I know these machines aren't anything. I know these symbols and these fake deities are nothing. It's I'm not worshiping them. I'm just going but then I started thinking, well, what if a Jew back in Hosea's day had done that? What if they took the corn and the oil and they said, Lord, I know Baal isn't a real thing. I know that you are the one who gives increase, but I'm just going to go lay this on Baal's altar. And then internally, I'm going to pray, Lord, you give the increase. Perhaps the Lord will use these means. Perhaps he will use Baal's altar to give me increase. And so I started thinking, man, is that what I do when I go to a casino? Because, the times where I go to the casino, I'll often be praying internally, Lord, help me. The lot is cast into the lap. The whole disposing is of you. So if it's your will, Lord, you can increase this. And I was like, am I doing the same thing? Am I using Baal's altar, so to speak, but praying to God to give the increase? Am I mixing the two, committing adultery? And then I started thinking, well, but there's no worship there. And then I was like, well, what is worship? Isn't an aspect of worship hope and trust? And am I not hoping and trusting in chance or luck or the game? Is that not where my trust is going? Hoping for increase, using these false deities. And so it's just kind of an eye-opening thing reading through Hosea, just seeing that connection there. Like, I wonder if that is, the exact same thing that we do when we go to the casino, or like the application being very similar. But and that led to a different thought too, which I'll express here on the other side of the break, because we are coming up on the break. So just stick with me, and I'll talk to you soon. Hey, welcome back to the Weekly Walk. I'm your host, Joshua Ingram, and we've been talking about the connection between the sin of Israel and Hosea and gambling or casinos. And so, as I was thinking that thought through, I realized, okay, if this is true, if I'm seeing this connection in Hosea, I really want to feel that conviction. I want this to move from head knowledge into a heart conviction, so that I won't have an excuse to go to a casino. I'll be able to say no, I can't do that. It's wrong, rather than just thinking about this connection in Hosea. I want to feel the conviction of it. And so that led to this other thought about felt convictions versus just knowing right and wrong. Because in my growth, like my convictions have always been felt on extreme levels. Like my my faith up to this point has been one of knowing, you know, in my heart, having the feeling, knowing what God wants me to do and what God doesn't want me to do. I've had zeal and like I say, conviction and just strong, heartfelt, I don't know, the conviction is the word. I guess I can't think of any other word, but just having that strong, heartfelt conviction about right or wrong. Like, I know I can't do this thing because I feel the conviction of it. Of course, in the light of the scriptures, the scriptures produce our convictions. I'm seeing something in black and white in the scriptures, knowing that God is the authority, knowing that what he says goes, and it becomes part of my heart. It becomes a felt conviction that I can't do such and such thing, or I must do such and such thing, because I know that is the will of God. I know it. I don't just have the head knowledge of it. I feel that conviction. And so that's how I've walked most of my faith in determining right and wrong, in these feelings of conviction. And lately I've experienced where I don't really feel the conviction anymore. And so I've been really, really concerned about that. Like, where has the zeal gone? Where has, I've loosened up on a lot of things. Like years ago, I wouldn't have stepped foot in a casino. I was absolutely persuaded, no, that's idolatry. It's wicked. It's a love of money. It's look at these machines. All, like, I wouldn't have sat down at a machine with a Ra symbol on it. I would have fled from that previously. And just other convictions, things as simple as like listening to secular music. I would have thought, no, music expresses the heart, and what goes into us influences our heart. And so I only want to put good things in. I only want to hear songs that praise God. And that was a strong conviction, to like where I would, tell other people, this is, you shouldn't listen to secular music. And then I found myself kind of loosening up on that. Like, well, if it's just for nostalgic reasons, I just want to think back to the, when I was a kid, this was the music I listened to, and blah, blah, blah. Those convictions kind of had faded. And so I've wrestled with this idea of like, is this just a maturity? And I needed that like almost legalistic ideology to keep me in bounds. And now that I'm maturing in the faith, I'm starting to recognize the freedom we have in Christ, the Romans 14, that, is that it, or what is it? And because as I'm looking at this Hosea and thinking, man, if this is a truth, I really want to feel that conviction to prevent me from going anymore, to ever go into a casino again. But I started thinking, okay, how does a father and a child relationship work? As a child, a father is very strict, and very hands on. You can't do this. Do this, don't do that. And as the child grows and matures, the principles that the father has laid, the principles of right and wrong, are laid to the point where the father no longer has to be as hands-on and say, hey, do this, don't do that. The child just knows, based on that teaching from the father, based on that character that's been developed in them, that this is right and this is wrong. As an adult, we don't need to go to our dads and say, hey, Dad, can I do this? Can I do that? Hopefully, if you've had godly parents and wise parents, you've been taught principles of right and wrong. You've been taught wisdom. And so you know what the right thing to do and what the right thing not to do is. And so I started thinking, is that the same thing? Would it be the same way the Lord works? Where in my formative years in the faith, in these early years in my walk, did the Lord have to come in hands-on and say, no, you can't do this and you can't do that? And now as I'm growing, is he taking more of a hands-off approach and saying, you know what's right and wrong? So guide your life by those principles that I've taught you. I don't have to be there to hold your hand in everything anymore. You know the right path, walk in it. You know the wrong path, avoid it. And so the problem with that is I struggle with temperance. I don't have a lot of self-control. I have, what an addict would call an addictive personality. I have, the things that my flesh likes, the things that I enjoy, I do to the extreme. Like people are always shocked at the amount of television or movies that I've watched, because my flesh enjoys that. And so I'll watch everything. If I want to sit, if there's a new series I want to watch, I'll sit and binge through the whole thing. Or, I do everything to the extreme, and I have a real hard time tempering myself. Which is probably, so that's why I've enjoyed the firm hand of the Lord up until now, like having his presence and having those strong convictions has kept me in line, because that's what I've needed. And it's always been that way for me. Even when I was lost, like I got locked up at the age of 13 in a boot camp, and like those were probably some of the most productive months of my life. I was there for like 6 months, and because I had somebody there telling me what I needed to do. It was very regimented, and that order, that schedule, that mandate kept me in line. When I don't have that, I fall apart. And so it is spiritually in my walk, to have the hand of the Lord present in my life, strongly guiding me into all things, has kept me on the straight and narrow. And since that hand has kind of been removed, I've often felt like I'm floundering. I felt desperate, like a toddler that holds his dad's hands to walk. When the dad finally lets go, there's panic. I've been in panic, because it's like, Lord, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. I don't know what you want me to do. And it's almost like the Lord is stepping back and going, yeah, you do. You know right and wrong. You don't have to feel it. You don't have to have my presence. You don't have to have my hand, directing every step. You don't have to have the conviction. I've told you what is right and wrong. You have the knowledge of the scriptures. You know what the will of the Lord is. So now walk in it. Do it. And like I say, my problem is I keep stumbling and falling. And so when it comes to this Hosea thing, I'm sitting there looking at it going, is this true? And if it is true, why do I need to feel it to apply it to my life? Why can't just the knowledge of it be enough to have this principle laid out before me? Here's the right path, here's the wrong path. I don't have to have the feeling of, yes, this is right, walk in it. I should just be able to look at the black and white on the page and say, this is what the Lord wants. This is what I must do. And so it's like I say, it's just kind of an eye-opening thing I've been thinking about this week, because I've struggled a lot with that, like not having his. And I suppose the toddler, like I say, the toddler panics when the dad lets go, or when the training wheels are taken off the bike, the kid panics, and there can be some falling at first, and repetitive trials. All right, do it again. Get up and do it again. Get up and do it again. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. I fall and I fall and I fall, and it's like, Lord, I need your hand. I need you to guide me. And the Lord's almost saying, like, no, you know where to go. You know what to do. Just do it. Take these steps on your own. Walk in this right path. And so, I don't know if any of that makes sense. It's really I'm spitballing off the top of my head here, trying to explain these internal thoughts and dialogue I've had in my heart. But yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. I guess that's what I got for you guys this week. I'll wrap up there. This is a shorter one, but that's fine. As always, I really appreciate you guys listening. I love you, and Lord willing, we'll talk to you next time.